Welcome to the Gamestorm Magic Podcast. I'm Dan Horgan. And,
I'm Dan Krapu.
so Tom's sick this week. He's got strep throat, and he wanted to come in, and I told him no, because I have a test Wednesday. I'm not trying to get sick. So we just came back from the Star City Games in Indianapolis yesterday. U-Top 64.
Yeah.
So congrats on that.
Thanks.
So you got to cash out, got to make your $100, right?
Hey, I made some dinner money, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Costs like $100 to go there.
That's true. Probably came out behind, but it was a fun weekend though.
Yeah.
It was a lot of magic.
You know, I went up there just for Sunday for the Classic. I did so bad. But I did get to play one really good game against Bant Nexus, so
Yeah.
we'll talk a little bit about that later. But that's what you were on. You were on Bant Nexus.
Yep.
So why don't you tell us a little bit of what you faced, what you lost to specifically, and then what you were like really just always winning against. It wasn't like really close.
Mm-hmm. So my Bet Nexus build was a lot different than the other ones that we're seeing there. It ran 2 Knight of Arms in the main, and it ran Absorb basically over Fog. It didn't run any Fogs in the main deck. There was 3 roots in there in the sideboard, which made the green-black matchup a little bit worse. But my view on the green-black matchup was that the Fogs didn't do a whole lot, especially when Vivian's such a big part of their game plan. If I can play a Wilderness Reclamation on turn 4 and untap with Absorb backup to counter their Vivian on the way down, I can most likely combo and win the next turn. But that was a really tough matchup, though. I think the green-black or the Sultai kind of decks were the toughest ones, especially post-board where they can bring in hand disruption and counter spells and a lot of instant speed removal for Wilderness Reclamation. That was definitely a tough matchup. The one time I faced Mono Red, which I thought was going to be an alright matchup, he killed me on turn 4, turn 5, both games, in game 1 and 2. So
That's real rough.
that was a pretty brutal one. In game 2, I got to play Gift of Paradise. That was the only spell I cast in either game, and just died.
Wow. Yeah, the deck can be really explosive and fast, but it's not always like that, and that's why I think Mono Red didn't show this weekend that well.
Yeah.
I don't know how many there were in the top 64, but from what I noticed is there wasn't a lot.
I believe there was 9 in the top 64. I believe when I was watching the broadcast last night, there was 11 green-black X decks, and I believe there was 9 mono red decks in the top 60, top 68 in day 2.
Okay, I mean that's not too bad, but I still don't think, considering how many probably showed up for day 1, the fact that only 9 of them made it, I'm assuming that day 1 was about probably 50% of the field was mono red. Maybe a little, maybe like,
I don't think it was nearly that high.
No?
I think it might have been maybe close to something like 20, 15, maybe 20% of the top end. I think the green-black showed up a lot. Especially a lot of the really good players were on green-black. A lot of the kind of grinders were on some kind of green-black deck, splashing Krasis for the most part.
Yeah, I saw a lot of Adonis Climb in the Classic, in the green-black decks.
There were a lot of Adonis Climb decks, either Sultai or Teamer Climb. There's some Bant Climb decks as well. And those decks perform really well in the kind of mirror matches or in like the Climb. For example, like the Climb decks performed very well against the mid-range decks because it was kind of the mirror breaker when you got to flip a Climb and attack for a 14-powered Carnage Tyrant in the air.
Yeah, but I think it just loses to control.
It can. The thing that's nice about all those decks though is that they're playing blue, so they get a lot of negates and staple strokes out of the sideboard. And the Sultai versions get a lot of hand disruption too, so the matchup against control isn't too bad.
It isn't awful, but I think control's still favored in it.
Yeah, as it is with about every control versus mid-range, that control's going to be favored, especially game 1 when they have made that counter spells.
Yeah. Is there any changes that you would make to the deck now? Like, if you knew exactly what you're going to play, let's say you knew exactly what you're going to play all 15 rounds, what would you have changed?
So I don't think it necessarily had to do anything with the metagame there. I think it was more so just after getting more reps in with the deck, because I really threw this deck together in probably about 20 or 30 minutes and tested it for just a couple hours on Wednesday and Thursday night before heading down there. I think one thing I would definitely change is I would put Growth Spiral on the deck. I think that I kind of didn't think about how important it is to flip Search for Azcanta as early as possible, and things like Growth Spiral or Revitalize can get that done real fast.
Yeah.
So I put that in, and the thing I'd probably change going forward is rather than playing Gift of Paradise in order to splash the explosion. I'd probably just play 4-color and splash it off of Stomping Grounds or Steam Vents, because I think that's probably just the more the more efficient way to get it done, and it frees up 4 spots for things like Growth Spiral that let me flip my Search for Escalante earlier, and really let me play more on my opponent's turn with things like Growth Spiral and Instant Speed.
Yeah, you're gonna play Sanguine Sacrament.
So I know you mentioned that to me last night. Sanguine Sacrament's interesting because it means that I have just another mana sink, and it's an instant speed, so I can do it on my end step with the Wilderness Reclamation trigger. It certainly would help in some matchups. The thing that kind of shies me away from it is that I would just kind of say, why would I play that over another Expansion Explosion? Because if I'm going to have enough mana where it becomes relevant, where I'm casting it for a huge X value, and I'm going to gain 100 life off it or something, I could just be explosioning my opponent for that much.
Yeah.
I think that it could be relevant against mono red if I just do it for gaining 6 or 8 life or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's mono red struggles with that. I think the number that mono red cannot have you gain and still be winning easily is if you gain more than 6 life, I don't think mono red has a high win rate.
Which is the big reason why I played Absorb over the Fogs was because of that. Because absorbing a Skewer or a Wizard of Lightning or a Frenzy or something
is essentially gaining you 6 life.
It's gaining me at least 6 life. Right. And it's wasting their resources too. And for mono red to win, they have to be very. They have a very high density of burn spells in order to win that matchup.
Right.
And Absorb was really the best card I thought in the matchup for that, because it was able to counter their important cards and keep my life total relatively high.
Yeah. You said you only played it once.
Yeah, I only played against mono red once. It was when I was still 3-0 on day 1, and he stopped me in 2 games real quick.
Right.
I think the total match was about 10 minutes long.
Right. What were your other losses? Just green-black decks?
Green-black, I lost to Jonathan Hobbs, who actually took second with his Bant Flash deck. Mm-hmm. And that matchup felt literally unwinnable. I don't know how the Fog deck can reasonably even try to beat that deck. Because really, the strategy is really smart. It's play Growth Chamber Guardian on turn 2, and then protect it with Spell Pierce, Syncopate, and Frilled Mystic for just the rest of the game, especially against the Nexus deck, which seems like a really strong game plan, because the Nexus deck has to really be tapping out on their turn, especially at the beginning of the game, which means Spell Pierce is really strong and Syncopate's really strong in that matchup. And I took 1 game off of him. I took game 2. He stumbled on lands. He missed his 3rd land drop, which meant that he couldn't keep Spell Pierce or Syncopate up when he was trying to be developing his board and playing things like his Growth Chamber Guardians.
Yeah.
So I got to develop my board in that game and rushed out and was able to combo with Nexus really quickly, and got there in game 2. But game 3, he went turn 2 Growth Chamber Guardian, and he Spell Pierced my first settle, and then he syncopated for 1. Or no, sorry, he syncopated my first settle, and then he Spell Pierced my second one, and then he cast Frilled Mystic to counter my Cleansing Nova. And that was how that game went.
Yeah. I'm looking at his deck right now, and I find it really interesting. He's playing 26 lands.
Yeah, I think that it was too high, actually. I don't think he needed the full 26 when he was playing a tempo deck like that.
Yeah.
In the finals, he got flooded out really, really bad in the game 2. He drew 3 non-land cards and about 14 lands. So that's not because he's running 26. That's just horrible variance. But
right.
I think that in a deck like that, you're curving out at Angel of Grace in that deck on 5. But I don't think you need to hit it turn 5 necessarily. And with the way that you're able to thin your deck out by searching out more Growth Chamber Guardians a little bit, I think you can definitely cut it down to 25, maybe even 24. And I think that would probably be okay.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Did he run J-Light Ranger in that deck? Did he run J-Light
in the sideboard? No.
Okay.
No, so he plays 3 Knight of Autumn in the sideboard, but his creature base is 4 Angel of Grace, 4 Frilled Mystic, 4 Growth Trample Guardian, 1 Shalai.
Yeah.
That's it. No, I'd like to say that his deck does curve out at Mass Manipulation.
Yeah. That was an interesting one I saw on the sideboard of his. I don't think I would run that.
It's just a one of.
That's one deck I'm looking at running. But the problem with mass manipulation is that it's 4 blue, and then double X.
Mm-hmm.
And in a deck where you're running 26 lands like that, and you're trying to play it most on your opponent's turn, getting up to 4 blue is gonna be really difficult on turn 6 even. I know you're playing a lot of dual lands in there to get there, but getting up to 4 blue is a struggle in a 3-color deck.
I think like the only way this would be like really, really, really super playable and super good would be like in a deck with Azor's Gateway, because you're at 20 life, just make 20 float 20 blue, and then just go take 16 things.
I could see that. I think the best kind of decks for it though are the either running it in the sideboard of like a Nexus deck, or like a Esper control deck for the kind of mirror matches between those kind of control type decks, because you're going to be able to develop your mana base a lot more, and you're not really playing a tempo game plan. You're trying to make it to late game where that card's going to be a lot more relevant. So I think I don't really like it in a tempo deck like that. I'd rather have some kind of other play. I'm assuming that's for the control matchup, and I'd rather just have some other kind of disruption for it.
Right.
Maybe just another counterspell in the sideboard rather than a mass manipulation.
Yeah, I definitely could see that.
The other card I was looking at too potentially for that kind of deck is a Dream Eater, because it lets you flash it in on an end step, and you're getting to surveil 4 when you're running 25 or 26 lands in the deck. It lets you filter through those lands a lot better, being able to surveil them into the graveyard.
Right.
And in my deck, I was playing Precognitive Perception, and being able to scry 3 draw through like that feels like Demonic Tutor when you're looking for cards like, for Nexus in my case, but for him, things like Angel of Grace or just more flash creatures, be able to find them and put them on top of his library is huge.
Yeah. So one of the other decks, the deck that Jonathan Hobbs playing Band Control, it's called Band Control on here. They title it as Band Control. It is Band Mid-Range or Band Flash. The number one deck, the deck that took the whole tournament down, is Sultai Aggro, Anthony DeVardi. It says Sultai Aggro.
It's definitely Sultai mid-range. It's
definitely, I was going to definitely say, it's definitely a mid-range deck. I saw a lot of decks exactly like this.
The biggest new addition for those decks has to be the Hydroid Krasis and splashing blue very easily with the new mana bases.
Yes.
I think that the Explore package did really well for them. And as you see, this one had 4 Wildgrowth Walkers and basically the full Explore package. He even had 1 Seeker Squire in the main board. There are a lot of decks that were cutting those in order to make room for the Krasis. But I see he went very, very creature heavy really and cut a lot of the spells out of the deck. Yeah,
he's playing 2 Veracious Attempts, 3 Vivian Reed, 3 Find Finality, 2 Cast Down.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, there's really no room for anything else in that main deck. He's running real creature heavy, but it's a lot of cards that get you a lot of value. Things like Midnight Reaper, he's got 2 of those in there, and then the full Explorer package, the 4 Myrtle Branch Walker, 4 Jade Light, and then the 3 Hydrate Crisis to help him, draw more cards.
Yeah. One thing I didn't notice about, just within the Classic, is I noticed a lot of people not playing both Carnage Tyrant and Hydrate Crisis. It was like they were either playing one or the other, and I think that's where a lot of people made the cut is, do I want to play Hydrate Crisis or do I want to play Carnage Tyrant? And then people were just like, I'd rather play Hydrate Crisis because it draws me cards and gains me life. Playing both of them is just insane.
The place where I saw the cut was either there or with the Explorer package. I saw people either cutting back on Branch Walkers and some number of Wildgrowth Walkers, or for some of them all of the Wildgrowth Walkers to make room for Crisis. Or some of the other decks were cutting down on their top end like Carnage Tyrant. The other or at least card I saw here too was Hostage Taker, which I don't think he ran any of in this deck.
Oh, he did not.
But that was another card I saw in the green-black decks that was a pretty big mirror breaker. But I think it's kind of going to be a huge card going forward because it's able to steal a Hydrate Krasis, and if the Hostage Taker ever dies, the Krasis just dies as it enters. So it's just a hard removal spell at that point.
It's true.
But you can also cast it for its X cost, I believe, as well, off of it. Because you're allowed to cast it using any color. So you can cast it for X off of the Hostage Taker the next turn, but you're not at a risk of them killing it and getting back their creature, like you are with if you're stealing anything else, really, Deputy Attention or something.
Right.
So I think that Hostage Taker is going to be really big going forward, and that's kind of where we saw Wyatt Darby's deck going. With the hero deck, he was running almost everything was like a must-remove card. Thief of Sanity is huge. in almost any matchup. They can run away with the game very quickly if you slam that on turn 3 and start attacking with it.
Right. And then here's the Esper control deck that beat Wyatt with Nick Cowden, I think. He played Wyatt, correct? Because he was in third or fourth.
Yeah.
And because
Yep.
so Wyatt played in the top 8. He played against an Esper control deck, and it was Nick Cowden, 27 lands. Seems normal.
Yep.
I'm not a fan of playing that many lands, but that's just me.
For that, it really depends on the amount of cantrips
Right.
you're running. If you're running Opt or some kind of early cantrip, whether it's
Which
Opt
he
or
is not.
Radical Idea.
He's running none.
Sure. And you cut all 4 of those, you can jam in more counter spells, and you run 1 extra land,
Yeah.
which gives you more interaction.
His list is really interesting with the cantrip package.
Well, I think the most interesting part of it is the 4 syncopates the main board.
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting addition. I think that really did him a lot of favors against the Nexus decks, because you will be able to exile the Nexus of Fate with syncopate. So I think that's a really big piece of this, actually.
The interesting part to me is the fact that he's playing 1 Chemister's Insight and 3 Precognitive Perceptions.
Yeah.
And no other draw spells other than Teferi.
I really like
Search.
Precognitive Perception. Not as much in the Esper decks, because you're almost never going to be able to cast it on your turn, unless you're so far ahead in the game where you just don't care what your opponent resolves, which now is really hard, because with Hydroid Crisis in there, if they resolve a huge Crisis, you're kind of stuck at that point. You've got to remove it right away. They get the card draw, and they're going to get the card draw no matter what. But now you've got to deal with, potentially a 10/10 flying trample creature out there.
Right, which he has lots of spot removal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got lots of spot removal, but a lot of it's going to be probably used earlier on in the game.
Right.
I think in the Bant Nexus deck, I only ran 1 of the Precognitive Perception. I would have definitely run. I probably would have rather run two or 3 of them probably over the Chemist's Insights. Because drawing 3 on their end step is still very strong, but also when I will it as Reclamation, being able to scry 3, draw 3.
Yeah.
It's a lot like Demonic Tutor.
And then in third, fourth place also, there's White Weenies, Max Magnuson. This is interesting. How did he dodge just Kaya's Wrath all day for 2 days? Or is it just so good that you don't care?
Well, you get Tithe Taker in the deck.
Right. Yeah, he's playing 4 Tithe Takers in the main,
which is big, because it turns Kaya's Wrath into a 5-mana spell, and it also has Afterlife as well. So we Tithe Takers.
It does not turn Kaya's Wrath into a 5-mana spell.
Oh, so it's
only on your turn.
It's just on his turn.
Yeah, it's Thalia for your turn only, right?
Yeah. It also, but it also has Afterlife as well, which lets you keep board presence around. And also things like Dauntless Bodyguard also allow and Hunted Witness.
Deputy of Detention, right?
Yeah, and Hunted Witness are huge in that matchup. Deputy Detention is alright, I guess. Not really against.
Yeah, it's not really against control, but I mean it's still a card.
And it's really good in the against the mid-range decks, because you're able to clear a blocker out of the way and get your creatures in.
Right.
I don't know whether the blue splash or the red splash is better. I wonder if you could just run both. The mana base is there for it now, where you can run 8 of each source, and just run Deputy of Detention and Heroic Reinforcements. I don't know if there's a need for that necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, where do you make the cut here then? There's nothing that you would want to cut here for that, I don't think.
Yeah, you could always trim down on something like Allegion's Landing or a Venerated Loxodon, because in general, Loxodon and Heroic Reinforcements do somewhat of the same thing. They're both there to kind of close the game out. Heroic Reinforcements can just get their turn earlier.
Right.
So I think you could potentially make some cuts there, and then just stay at the 21 lands, but run 4 Sacred Foundries and 4 Clifftop Retreats. It'll be kind of interesting to see in testing how that works.
Yeah. And then in 5th through 8th place, there's another Esper control deck. This is Andrew Davis. And so he's pretty much, it looks very similar to Nick's Esper control deck. It's got 1 less land. It's playing 4 Thought Erasure's main. And instead of playing 3 precognitive perceptions and 1 chemisters, it's flipping that, playing 3 chemisters, 1 precognitive, which I personally would like better. than the other way around. Because I just like the 4 mana, be able to draw 2 and then do it again.
Yeah.
Then a 5 mana, draw 3 and maybe scry 3, but you're almost never getting that benefit in an Esper deck.
Sure. Yeah, I see the validity of running either one of them. I think it's really strong. Both cards are really strong. I think that the thing is, with Precognitive Perception, you get 3 cards out of it right away. With the Chemist's Insight, you get 2 cards, but then you also have to discard a card to draw the next 2.
Yeah.
And if you have a Teferi out and going, it's going to be easy because you're going to have so many, you're going to be so card dense at that point that you can discard an extra land. But if you don't have a Teferi out there in like the mirror matches, you're not going to be wanting to discard lands to it necessarily. You're going to have some dead cards in game 1 and 2, or in game 1, but in game 2 and 3, it's a lot harder to try to discard cards because you're either going to be missing land drops or you're going to have to discard some kind of counter spells or removals.
Interesting card in the sideboard though. That's Basilica Bellhunt.
Oh yeah,
we saw that in Wyatt Darby's deck as well. That's just an interesting card. Gain 3 life, make your opponent discard a card.
Yeah.
3 or 4 mana, 2 white, 2 black, and a 3/4.
It's really interesting because that has is really useful in a lot of matchups. Against Mono Red, gaining 3 and forcing them to discard a card is pretty big.
And having a 3/4 that's out of range of all their kill spells.
It blocks Chain Whirler, and it blocks every other creature in the deck outside of a Steamkin on 4, or with 3 counters on it.
Even then, you block, and then they can't remove the counters and have it live.
Sure.
You're buying yourself a turn essentially with that.
Yeah, but it's also good against control because it takes a card out of their hand and it gives you a threat as well. Now, you don't really want to be tapping out for that on turn 4 because they just untap and play it to Teferi.
Right.
But definitely later on in the game, that could be definitely relevant as just a threat that's on the field, and it forces them to answer it eventually. It also takes a card out of their hand.
Yeah.
The one interesting thing I think that's the difference between that Esper control deck and Nick Cowden's list is that Nick had 4 Syncopates in the main, and Andrew Davis, I believe, has no Syncopates at all in the main, and looks like none on the side either. It looks like he just opted to go for the 4 Thought Erasures instead. I think that's definitely worse against Nexus to some extent because you don't really get to remove the Nexus in that matchup. And it's hard to say which one's better because Thought Eraser is just not as good against green black either because they can find back their threats.
So the thing I'm thinking with it is it's week 1, right? Week 1, I think Thought Erasure is just the safer bet, right?
I think it could be, but I think the meta was somewhat known going in. There was going to be a lot of green black, and so I think Syncopate's actually stronger in that matchup. Thought Eraser is very good, especially to the sideboard. They bring them in, but I think he'd rather be exiling their threats.
Oh yeah,
Syncopate.
I agree with that. But if he was like testing and was testing, not knowing what the format was going to be, whatever. Like, then he's just like, I don't really want to change it because I've been testing with it this way and it's been playing well this way.
Sure.
Like that's always a possibility. So like, I never really argue with. Like, obviously, if they're top 8ing, they played the deck and they played it well. Like,
of course. Yeah.
Sometimes you have those people who just, like, dodged their worst matchup all day. And, like, that's how they got to the top 8. But, hey, they did it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how you get there. It just matters that you get there, right? The next deck is Wyatt Darby, Pro Tour Dominaria champion.
They were mentioned so many times.
Right. Yeah, every single time they said his name, they were like, Pro Tour Dominaria champion, Wyatt Darby. Playing Basilica Bellhunt. Like every single time. It was who was it? It was Gary Thompson and Brian
Gottlieb.
Yeah. And Brian was doing it earlier in the day. I don't know if he was doing the top 8 though. I know Gary was, and then someone else.
It was Jerry T, and then it was I don't know who was in the top 8. I know Brian was on there earlier when White Darby was playing the feature match, but it came up all the time though.
Yeah, they're like, it looks like he's not going to win here today, but, he still can't take the Pro Tour away from him, right? He's from, Iowa, so so his deck's really interesting. I know in the top 8 he was getting a lot of crap from Jerry Thompson. That's what we call him now, by the way. Gary Jerry, because, there's a G there.
That's how it's spelled.
Right.
Oh, God.
But Jerry would be spelled with a J. So it's Gary Thompson. Okay? But yeah, they were kind of ripping into him, telling him, saying, oh, this deck's really clunky. which in the control matchup I kind of agree with. Watching or listening and watching the his top 8 game, especially game 3 where he missed his 3rd land drop, the deck just became so clunky because he has so many like 4 drops.
Well, but you can say that about any deck that misses the 3rd land drop. So I think that's hard to say that it's because of that.
Like, it was prevalent in the first 2 games. It's just in the game where he missed the land drop on turn 3 and then hit his land drop after that. He hit consecutive land drops after that, and by turn 7 he had 6 lands out. But missing that 1 land on turn 3 just completely, like, his deck just couldn't do it, right?
Well, I don't know how clunky the deck really is, because there's a really great curve out it has. Either turn 2 you have Hero of Precinct 1 or Thought Eraser into a Thief of Sanity, which I think is a really, really strong kind of 1-2 punch. You either get to take a threat out of their hand or take a removal spell out of their hand and then resolve a Thief of Sanity and let them just go. Or you play a hero and then you follow up with the Thief of Sanity, and either if they killed the hero, your Thief of Sanity is now resolving, or you have the Thief of Sanity, you get a 1/1 token out of it, and then you can start going to town and attacking with that hero.
Right.
So I think that there's a really kind of strong shell there. Maybe it didn't have the optimal creature base with it, but I think that there's a lot of like a must answer threats in that deck.
Oh no, like I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I think the deck, the curve on it was clunky.
What would you change from it then?
I'm not 100% sure. I haven't really touched the deck, but I know he's playing. Let's see, he's playing 8 4-drops, 2 5-drops, 3 4 or 7 9 3-drops, Discovery Dispersal. So he's playing 12 2-drops.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like a pretty good curve to me. I think he might be a little bit heavy on the 4-drop spot.
I solely think it's the 4-drops. I think he's playing like too many 4-drops.
Yeah, I could see potentially cutting 2 of the Basilica Bellhaunts down. Part of it is that you want to be running as many multicolored spells as possible.
Right. Those are double black, double white, so that is kind of rough when you're in a 3-color deck. Sure. It's not so rough now when you have the shocks, but I definitely think the deck was just slightly like it was just it. I don't think you really notice it in a lot of his like in any of his other games, but because he's playing against control, I think it got exposed more because he was playing against an Esper control deck.
I think though if you watch that game too, though, it really shows how strong that deck is, because he was able to really curve out and resolve a lot of threats, and then he Eldest Reborn back his opponent's Teferi and ended up embleming it. That game.
No, I definitely remember that, but
so I think that the curve's all right. I think that he might be climbing up a little bit on the 4-drop spot, but I don't think it's that big of a...
I think that was the problem in his game 3, though, is missing that 3rd land drop didn't allow him to just go like 4-drop into 4-drop into 4-drop into 4-drop after that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like, but a deck where it's like if you miss your turn 3 land drop, like your deck can't recover from it. I think that just makes it clunky.
Well, I think that against control, any deck that misses their 3rd land drop against control, except for like mono red, is going to lose that game. Like it doesn't matter if you're playing the perfect green black deck. If we had, if you take the champions in a green black deck and play that against Esper control, and he misses his 3rd land drop for 2 turns, it's not going to matter what he does. If he runs 3 branch walkers out there, it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
Because the control decks punish those those stumbles.
Right.
So I don't think that's
it was a 1-turn stumble. He hit his 3rd land drop on 4, hit his 4th on 5, and it was a 1-turn stumble. And because he had so many 4-drops and had to wait till turn 5 to cast a single 4-drop, and I believe at that time, like his hand was just like 3 4-drops and a 3-drop. I think he had a Thief of Sanity and like 3 4-drops in his hand, and he's just like, I can't do anything because there's so many. Like the likelihood of him drawing a 4-drop over his 2 and 3 drops was greater, right? Well, not the 2s, the 3s, definitely though. He was only playing 7 3-drops.
Yeah, but his odds of drawing land are much higher than either of those. So I think just saying because he stumbled on mana base that it becomes clunky. I think he got to the top 8 and
right. No, I'm not saying like
he got there because the deck was
I'm not saying it's like completely clunky. It's not the worst thing. I just think he's heavy on 4-drops.
So I guess my question would be, what would you cut then? The Seraph of the Scales or the Basilica Bellhaunt?
I really don't know. You might cut 1 Basilica Bellhaunt. I know it's a good card, but it is a 4-mana 3/4. It does It has good ETB effects. Maybe how many thieves was he playing? Sorry,
He's running 2 Thief of Sanity.
like not 3. It's Thief of
Is it
Thieves. Maybe go up to a 4th Thief. Honestly, like Thief is really good.
I know. I watched his stream a few days before the event. And he was streaming this deck a lot, and he originally had 4 Thieves in the main board. But the problem is that Thief has some really good matchups, and it's really good. When it's good, it's really, really good. But against mono red, it dies to shock. Against Golgari, when you're on the draw, it just dies to both either hostage taker just takes it, or the chupacabra just eats it real quickly. So running a 4th Thief gets really clunky on turn 3. So that's why I'm not a huge fan of running a 4th Thief of Sanity over something like a Bell Hunt, where you're getting an actual ETB effect off of it in those matchups.
I definitely think 1 Seraph could maybe be cut. I mean, he's playing 3.
See, I really like Seraph though, because
it does have Afterlife
is
2.
huge.
I didn't realize that it had Afterlife 2.
Yeah, the Afterlife is huge. I think you could potentially cut a Bell Hunt, but I really would like to keep all of those 4-drops in the deck, because they are multicolored, which triggers that hero. But I think that they're good in a lot of matchups. I think both of them are pretty good against Golgari. It takes a card out of their hand. Bell Hunt does, and the Seraph of the Scales will trade with Hydra Krasis or Carnage Tyrant, or a Giant Wildgrowth Walker, because you can give it Death Touch. The Vigilance on there is fantastic too, and being able to create 2 1/1s that can block, a Giant Wildgrowth Walker or something afterwards is big.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. He'll be streaming, obviously. He'll probably come out with some changes to the deck, maybe. Maybe he won't. Maybe he'll leave it how it is. Like, they mentioned that on the stream. But, like I said, like, I didn't really notice it was really that clunky till, like, the commentators really mentioned something about it. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of clunky with the 4-drops. But, I mean, it ran pretty smoothly.
Well, I think it was more so, I think they were mentioning that the draw was real clunky that game because he got stuck on 2 lands.
No, they mentioned it before Game 3. They mentioned it prior to Game 3 and then mentioned it after Game 3. Like, they, clarified, that we think the deck's kind of clunky. Watch Wyatt streams, because he'll tell you what he's going to change.
Yeah.
And he's writing an article for Star City coming out soon about the deck, so I wonder, that's different that he's writing for them. It's new.
Yeah.
It's new.
Well, that was actually his first Star City event he'd been to, and he top 8 his first event that he went to for Star City.
Yeah, and then now he's writing an article for him, so...
Yeah.
I mean, hey, maybe we'll see a Pro Tour champion for the first time, on Star City's team,
Yeah.
Star City, usually a lot of the players there don't really participate in Grand Prix, and they don't really ever get Pro Tour.
Yeah, well, a lot of them are grinding for the Star City Invitational,
right?
Because that's really their Pro Tour.
Their faces on it, right? We know, there's been some issues with that team lately. A lot of people leaving, so we could see. No, they have 2 guys on their team right now.
A lot of them are. There's a lot of Star City kind of grinders, people that write for them a lot that are on different teams. Like Team BCW is a big one, with Ross Merriam and Tannen Grace,
but the actual official Star City Games team is who now? Todd Anderson, and
it's all the people that do the coverage for them on the side. That's really their team of the people who do the coverage, but also will play their events when they're not doing coverage.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they're doing with that, but I think that it's probably just kind of starting to go away, and they're starting to just really focus on their coverage as far as a team, and they're not really sponsoring players as far as sponsoring them for events, but more so writing articles for them and doing things like that. Because if you see a lot of people on Team BCW will write articles for them. Actually all of them do, I believe. Yeah,
I know Caleb's writing a few articles for him lately. Not lately, but last time I went to a Star City event, he wrote his article on Infect, and I'm just just stick to Storm. Your deck is Storm.
Although Caleb's playing mono red, and I believe he finished in, was it the top 12 or top? He was 10th place with mono red. Caleb was.
Yeah, there's no real storm in Standard, so
No.
he can't do that.
Although that's about as close as you can get.
Right. Yeah. No. The last time I played him in a Standard event was an Indie last year. He was there. He did not do well day one. He was playing zombies, and I played him round one, and round one in a classic. I'm just like, great, Of course, I'm in the pod. I have Caleb Shearer, the Brandon kid who won a GP. He's come here a few times to Gamestorm to play, and the last time he was here, it was really funny. He won the PBTQ because he was really grinding to get back to the GPs. He won the PBTQ. Didn't want to play the game. He said, I will give you all the packs. All I want is the invite. A week later, he won a GP. It was really funny because he's just like, I don't want any of these packs. And then he just won a GP. He's I think he has cerebral palsy. His mom has to help him play. You never met him?
No. I don't think I met him.
His name's Brandon. He's nice. His mom's really nice too.
Yeah.
She'll come out and talk to us all the time.
That's awesome.
But there was him, those two, and there was two other people there. Jim Davis was in my pod. My pod was just I'm like, great, I get this pod, of course. Round one.
Was it just for a side event or for the classic?
Oh, for the classic.
For the classic.
And this was back when they did, instead of one massive event, it was 32 people pods. And so I was in pod 4, and my pod just had all the all the play, all the. I'm just like, this sucks, right?
Yeah. But you know what that means, though? I'm pretty sure that means that they bounced out at day 1. So
correct.
That might not have been that good.
Well, they all switched their deck for the classic, right? Yeah. So I sit down across from him for game 1 and he's playing mono red. He's on mono black zombies. I'm on black white, and he has to call a judge over because we missed Diref Colossus or whatever. The one we both missed the counter to put on it. He calls the judge over. I'm like, you can put it on. I don't care. And he's like, nah. I understand that you don't care, but I'm a pro player sort of. I have to have this. I'm like, yeah, I understand. Go ahead. Some Russian judge comes over and couldn't understand a single word she said. Her accent was so thick. She's just was saying things, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what you're saying, but whatever. And then I just see a GRL, or
GRV.
Yeah,
the gamer violation.
Yeah,
sure.
And I see that. I just see her write that on the page. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then I cast Grasp of Darkness. This is how I lost. I cast Grasp of Darkness on. I held the card over the creature I wanted to target, but then said a different name.
Oh God.
Because I was looking down because I was reading the Relentless Dead. I was reading Relentless Dead to see how it worked, and realizing that you had to pay black to bring it back, and he didn't have any black open, and I cast it. Saying the card, a different card, and holding it over the Relentless Dead because he wasn't able to bring the Relentless Dead back, but he was able to bring the other card back.
Oh no!
And I'm like, and I just drop it, and I'm like, oh man.
Well, now with the way the rules have changed, you should be able to take that back. Actually,
correct. But this was a year ago, and we had just already gotten a game rules violation.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to get DQ'd my round 1. And I'm not trying to screw Caleb over either. You know, it's game 3. I'm like. Whatever, at least Caleb's going to keep winning, and I'm going to keep winning as well, so I'll have good breakers. Yeah. And then I got a game loss I had to go to the bathroom. I told some judge that I had to go to the bathroom, but the judge was not a judge for the classic, and I couldn't find the judge to tell another judge that I told him I was going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I was literally less than 10 seconds late to the round. I was at the pairings board when the clock started, and I'm looking for my table, why are you the clock was so fast because the timer for the last round hadn't even gone off yet.
Oh wow.
It wasn't even gone when I went to go to the bathroom. The problem was the bathroom was on the other side of the building. I was just done at that point because it was my best matchup, but I had to sideboard for it to be my best matchup. I just lose game 1 in that and win game 2 and 3. Just no. So I was just real salty about it, but so I don't enjoy Indy that much. Every time I go there, I just do awful. So let's get back to these decks.
I think is it Drake's is the next one.
Grixis. Grixis Drakes.
I think it's just running the Discovery Dispersal, I believe, is the only actual black card. And one's just one Blood Crypt.
But it's listed as Grixis Drakes.
I don't know what you're looking at, but from what I'm looking at...
On MTG Top 8, it's Grixis
Okay, well, you can look there. I'm looking on the official StarCity.com.
You get to play the Pteramander, right?
Yeah, Pteramander. Which
No, the Pteramander.
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah.
I believe that Brad Carpenter was actually the last undefeated player. I believe he was 9-0 day one, and I believe he won his first match to go 10-0 in day two.
Nice.
Yeah, the deck seemed really strong. I think that a lot of people kind of slept on it. The one thing that I thought would have hurt it more than it did was that everyone was running Crushing Canopy in the sideboard for an instant speed removal for enchantments.
Right.
And you must have dodged that a lot throughout the day. Either that or it looks like he has no Spell Pierce in the sideboard, so there's no way to even counter that.
He has 3 Spell Pierce in the main.
Oh, sorry, he has 3 Spell Pierce in the main. That's where they'd be. That's interesting. A lot of people aren't running Spell Pierce. They're running just Dive Down. But I like Spell Pierce a lot in this deck, especially when you have Pteramander now.
Yeah.
It lets you protect your Pteramander on turn 2. And it fills your graveyard just as quick as something like an Opt would.
Right.
Yeah, I think I really like the list a lot.
So the Pteramander is just a 1/1, and then you just have to wait till you have 8 mana to make it worthwhile? Or?
Well, you get 1 less. It costs 1 less for each instant and sorcery.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, I see.
Yeah, so a lot of times with that deck, it's going to be a 2 mana 5/5.
Yeah.
Which is a better Tarmogoyf because it is flying as well.
Yeah. My interesting thing about this is Niv Mizzet is in the sideboard.
Mm-hmm.
No mainboard nibs for you.
I think that that was part of a meta call against green-black.
Yeah.
Niv Mizzet is notoriously bad against green-black. Vivian Reed just says destroy target Niv Mizzet, and they have probably about 6 spells in the main board that will trigger Niv. The rest of it is just Hostage Taker, which will take it, Chupacabra, which will just kill it outright, and Vivian, that'll just down-tick right onto it. So I think that running Niv Mizzet in the sideboard, definitely the right play. I think it's good against Esper Control and Bat Nexus, of course, but it's not something you want to be running into green-black the whole time.
Yeah. I really like Entrancing Melody in the board. That is what I call a 4-mana steal a 10/10 Crisis.
Yeah. That's big, but I think it's also really good in the aggro matchups as well.
Yeah.
2 mana, steal Benelia Knight.
Yeah.
And it lets you trade, knights a lot of times, or trade off, your knight or your Mr. Benelia Knight for something else.
Yeah, I love the fact that it's essentially because the way XCMC cards work. Crassus is a 2-mana spell in your hand, and it is a 2-mana spell once it resolves. When it's on the stack, it's X plus 2.
What's on the stack is able to be Disdainful Stroked about 99% of the time.
Unless they're casting it for 1.
Yeah, which means they will draw 0 and gain 0. So I would not recommend that.
Right, yeah. So it's probably like 99.8% of the time it is able to be countered with Disdainful Stroke. I don't really see anyone playing it for 1 unless you have like Adonis Climb out and you're just like, let's just put counters on it with Adonis Climb.
Which even then I would still wait a turn because then you can, just put a counter on it and flip Adonis Climb.
Right, yeah, I mean, obviously. But if they're like, my opponent totally, I saw my opponent's hand, they have a Disdainful Stroke in hand, I'm going to play this for 1 so they can't de-stroke it, right?
Yeah, well, I'd hope there'd be better play than that, but I guess that could come up.
Yeah, I mean,
but also you could just cast it for more because that uncounterable part of it.
Right. Yeah. There's nothing. There's nothing to counter cast triggers right now.
There's only one card actually. There's the split card. The new Simic split card counters a triggered or activated ability, which would be better.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's the only one. I believe it's. I don't know. Back half. I don't remember what the back half does. It's not the.
It's like destroy target creature, make a 3/3 or something like that?
No, that's the one I believe that the front half searches the top 5 for a creature.
Oh, okay.
I think this one actually might copy. I think the back half copies.
You're right. Yeah.
Green, blue. Yeah, green, blue, and 1 copy the creature you control.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see why anyone really wants to play Stifle right now. I don't think I really want to play Stifle in like any format other than like EDH, because I can stifle my pack triggers. That's the only reason why I even play it. Like if I play EDH, it's like I'm gonna Pact a Negation. They're like, you don't have 5 mana. Yeah, but I have a Stifle.
Yeah. Well, I know I saw that card actually being run in a couple of different like Simic type decks. It lets you copy almost anything. Copying Biogenic Ooze is a pretty cool one.
It lets you counter a Teferi emblem.
True. Any emblem it would.
Any emblem.
Yeah.
But more relevant, it lets you counter a Teferi emblem.
Yeah. It's definitely playable at least for the back half in some kind of like Sultai mid range or Simic type like mid range deck. Like I said, like copying Biogenic Ooze was huge. Which Biogenic Ooze was interesting. It didn't show up a lot this weekend, but it was definitely a mirror breaker in the kind of the Sultai decks for the ones that ran it. Because it runs away with the game very quickly, and the Sultai decks don't run a whole lot of ways to remove it. It's really just Chupacabra or Hostage Taker because Vivian doesn't hit it. And after about 2 turns, you've got a couple of 4/4s basically on the field already.
Right. Now let's get to this last and final deck in the top 8. It's another Sultai aggro deck, very similar to the one that got first. The only difference is I see a Hostage Taker in the main. I see an Incubation Druid in the main. And he did not cut back on Jade Lights, Merfolk Branchwalkers, or Wild Growth Walkers.
Well, neither did the first one. He kept all of the...
Right, yeah. I'm saying, like, that was... sorry, that is the similarity there, is that they didn't really cut back on the Explore package.
The biggest difference I see here actually is the 2 Assassins trophies in the main.
Yep.
Which I think is just a good instant speed way to remove Wilderness Reclamation, so you can allow that to resolve and still hit it.
Yeah.
I know Vivian's a great answer for it, but there's times when they've got, in game 1, if it gets a little bit later on in the game and the Nexus player has 6 or 7 mana, they can just play Wilderness Reclamation and Nexus that turn and then untap and go.
Right.
So it's good to have some kind of instant speed removal. I think that Assassin Trophy actually might see a little bit more play, depending on where the Nexus decks go, or what other kind of decks show up with enchantments or artifacts that become problems.
Right, and we also saw he has 2 Threshing Bradodons on the board. Also, I'm assuming that also is dealing with Wilderness Reclamation. Especially because, I don't know how much you really want to be giving your opponent lands.
Yeah.
Sure, I'd rather have them have 1 land than a Wilderness Reclamation, because a Wilderness Reclamation is equal to at least 4 lands, right?
Yeah. Well, it's not only that, but being able to stack the triggers on end step is huge with that, too.
Yeah, no, that's
grabbing
huge,
the 1
too.
land is not a whole lot. The one, I saw this really crazy interaction, actually, earlier on the day. And it was a Bant Nexus player playing against a Golgari or Sultai deck. And the Sultai player played he had a Brontodon out, and he played a Vraska Relic Seeker, the big Vraska.
Okay.
And down-ticked on, I believe, a Krasis. And gets tapped out for it, down-ticked on a Krasis, gets a treasure out of it.
Yeah.
Passes the turn, and then the guy...
Oh, Wilderness Reclamation.
You only have 1 mana up, right? He's like, yeah, I just have the treasure. He goes, okay. Slams Wilderness Reclamation, says, go to my end step to untap. He goes, before your end step, sack the treasure and destroy it with Brontodon. And he just totally missed it. And that was
he asked him, you have 1 mana up?
Yeah, just only 1 mana available, but he just didn't see the way of sacking the treasure for Brontodon.
Yeah.
Which was just... that's a brutal way to go. But,
after we finish this, we'll talk about treasures some more, because I do want to tell the story about my Bant Nexus run-in. But the one card I find really interesting here is Biogenic Ooze in his board. I saw it cast at the Classic. Someone dude next to me goes, Biogenic Ooze, and he announced it. Not to just his opponent, but to the table. He's just Biogenic Ooze. And I'm and his opponent's can I read that? What does that do? And he's yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And just okay. And he's goes to end step, triggers. He's yup.
Yeah. I'm kind of interested in looking at something like Biogenic Ooze on a Nexus deck, because when you have all that extra mana on end step, you can make a bunch of those tokens, and then they all get counters at your end step too. So it could be really, really good. And another way to another mana sink that runs away the game faster than Krasis does. I think I like Crisis a lot more just because you get
to draw game,
but you only can cast it for the amount of mana that you have, and it doesn't have any more impact when you get all those triggers on the stack afterwards. Which is why I think Biogenic is kind of an interesting one to eventually run, because all it could take is just 1 extra turn if you're able to create a bunch of boost tokens and then put counters on them real quickly.
Right. So yeah, that's it for the top 8. So I do want to tell this story because it's interesting a little bit. So I'm playing against Bant Nexus. We're going to game 3. Game 2, like, he just ran away with the game, resolved the Teferi, took the Teferi up once, passed. I go to, like, attack the Teferi.
Well, what deck were you on for this?
I was on Boros Mentor again. I just felt comfortable with it. I really wanted to play a different deck. I just didn't have the time to play test with anything. I've been so busy. Like, every week I'm just really busy.
Yep.
So I didn't have a lot of time to play test with any other deck. Ended up just playing that. I put Make a Stands in the deck. I put a Unbreakable Formation, the Smothering Tide in the board. And that's the only changes I made.
You play the Make a Stand instead of the Unbreakable?
Yeah, in the main board I did. Because Make a Stand gives my creatures +1/+1, whereas Unbreakable, or +1/+0 at instant speed, whereas Unbreakable I have to cast it in my main phase to get good value out of it.
Not necessarily. I mean,
like, yeah, it says give my creatures
value,
indestructible, right?
Well, but it also gives them vigilance.
Correct.
Which I think is huge.
So that's why I was playing 2 and 1. But the fact that it gave my creatures +1/+0, and I was able to just give them +1/+0 at instant speed in addition to indestructible, whereas Unbreakable just gives indestructible at instant speed and gives +1/+1 counters and indestructible and vigilance if you play in your main phase. I don't really have a lot of time to do that against certain decks, especially because I'm very weak to settle. Yeah, I play Shalai's out of the board, but if I don't have a Shalai out, I'm just done to settle, right?
Sure, but you're done to settle with both cards though, so I don't really know how that would factor in. But I think that against creature-based decks, I think that Unbreakable Formation's a lot better because it pumps your team and it lets you get a clean attack with everything with vigilance, and then you still have blockers back.
Yeah,
with the other one, you have to try to blow them out in blocks.
I'm not typically worried about blockers. I'm not typically worried about blocking because my deck just wants to play fast.
Sure.
My deck wants to be faster than yours. So I don't really need to block. If I do have to block, I'm in a position where I'm probably not winning much. I just kind of want to be able to go attack. They go no blocks or something like that, and I can go +1/+0 and indestructible, like at instant speed. Something that they don't really necessarily they don't get to make good blocks that way.
Why not play like Trumpet Blast then for an extra point of damage?
Because the indestructible is relevant.
Sure.
Especially against green-black, which is a really weak matchup for me, game 1. The +1/+0 at instant speed is just relevant. It's in the majorly in that matchup, in that green-black matchup, where they go to block thinking it's a really good block with like a Wild Growth Walker or something like that, and then they're like, oh, my creature won't die because it'll still have 1 damage not on it, and it's like +1/+0. Now you have your Wild Growth Walker's dead. Now I'm in this game.
But in those like in a lot of those like Boros Mentor decks, though, you're running things like the split card that gives it +1 or +2/+2. Yeah, the Integrity Intervention, I believe. Yeah, and so like I think that they're gonna see those kind of tricks coming in combat. So I don't know how much of a surprise factor you're gonna get off of playing Make a Stand, instead of Unbreakable Formation. And I think like the counter is very relevant, and then also being able to block stuff way back in the Golgari matchup is really big.
Yeah. And like in my Vampire deck, I play 2 and 2, just because I like the versatility of both of them. Just for this deck, for this weekend, I wanted to play 2 Make a Stands main and 1 Unbreakable on the side. I was going to do 1/1 split and then just play the second Unbreakable out of the board, but testing it on Saturday night with like Austin and Barrett, like I just felt like I liked playing the Make a Stand better. I just felt like I wasn't forced into playing it my main phase all the time,
But anyways, you were talking about your Brent Nexus match.
So anyway, I lost. I just go like he casts Nexus. I go, the moment you draw the second Nexus, show me. I'll scoop. He goes to Fairy Plus, draws Nexus. I'm like, cool, let's go to game 3. And I'm like, man, like, what do I have to do for this? And because I didn't bring in the Smothering Tithe game 2, I didn't really. I was like, I don't think he drew a lot of cards. I didn't see any of the a lot of draw spells in his in game 1. I just kind of got there because he didn't he was casting like his root snares and stuff, but then like he wasn't able, like he missed 1 root snare 1 turn, and I was able to just get there off a Lightning Strike top deck. And so then in game 3, I slammed Smothering Tithe on 4. I pass the turn. He plays Wilderness Reclamation. I'm like, this is not good for me. At this point, I have... So my turn 1 play was Legion's Landing. I did not play a turn 2 play. I just held up Lightning Strike. I didn't end up casting it. My turn 3 play was Tajik. Swing Mentor. So I get in for some more damage. Turn 4 was Smothering Tithe, again, Swing Mentor. So I have 2-3. I have a 3-2 and a 3-3 now. One's gaining me life, one's not. And a Smothering Tithe out. So I pass the turn, he draws a card. I go, do you want to pay 2? He's like, nope. I'm like, cool, I'll get a treasure, right? And so he slams his Wilderness Reclamation. I'm like, all right, great. I have 1 turn. I'm like, I have 1 turn to not lose, right? Because he's sitting there, and I'm like, he has the Teferi in his hand. I know it. And he's probably going to draw the Nexus. Because that's just what happens in this matchup, right? So I pass the turn, or I attack. He has the Root Snare, because otherwise I just put him at 3 and I could just kill him with the Lightning Strike in my hand. I pass the turn. At my end step, he goes Growth Spiral, draw a card, play a land, plays a tap land. Doesn't pay for the 2. So I get another treasure, and I pass the turn. My hand at this point is double Lightning Strike, double Integrity Intervention. I have 4 lands and I have 2 treasures currently. So I pass the turn, he draws, doesn't pay for 2, right? Get a 3rd treasure, and I'm like, if he gets a 4th treasure, he is dead. If I get a 4th treasure, so he plays Teferi and goes plus, and I'm like, oh, this is great. And he's like, but I have to wait for him to draw the card, so I can't like respond to the trigger. So I'm like, he draws the card, pluses, or I get the treasure, and then he goes, move to end step. I go, end step's good. Both Teferi trigger and Splendid Reclamation on the stack. I'm going to intervention, target you. And he's like, what's that do? I'm like, it's Lightning Helix for 4 mana. And he's like, all right. So you gain 3, I take 3. And I'm like, and then I'm going to spend a red and a color that I don't care about and Lightning Strike you. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, I'm going to do it again. And he's at 9. And he's just like, well, I wasn't expecting that. And he just like kind of like went out and he's like, okay. And then he's just like, wait, hold on. I want to see if I expected that, like if I would have been able to win. And he's like, because I have this Knight of Autumn in my hand for the Smothering Tithe. I'm like, I don't think it matters. I have 4 burn spells. I have 12 damage. Like even if you gain 4, like I don't care.
Yeah, but if you gain 4, I would have put him out of range though.
I still have 2 creatures. I have 2 3/3s.
And then he could have. Did he have Nexus in hand though?
I think he drew it off the Teferi.
Oh, he drew off the Teferi.
Because he had 3 cards total in hand.
Yeah.
And 2 of them were No, he drew it off the Teferi.
Okay.
He had to have.
Yeah.
Because he played a land. He played a land before playing the Teferi, and then he had 1 card in hand, then drew. So he had to draw. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he was like, I had this in hand, so that means he had that Teferi in a land.
Yeah.
So no matter what he did, he was out of range.
Yeah. And it didn't really matter if he paid. He couldn't have paid at any point for the plus. Off the Teferi.
He could have paid for it off no.
No, he played the Wilderness Reclamation earlier, so he was kind of just dead.
Yeah, no.
Dead to Smothering Tithe.
Yeah, he was definitely dead to Smothering Tithe. Like,
oh god.
Definitely made me think that card's just better than it was. Like, I mean, it's still not the best card. I definitely need a better mana sink for it, but
I would love to run something like that with like Expansion Explosion, and then
right,
just, like, as somebody's chaining Nexus and like just keeps drawing a bunch of cards, I just keep getting all these like treasures, and then it just explosion them for the game.
Yeah. Yeah, or just explosion them so they have to draw their whole deck.
Yeah, and in some white green token deck, play that and then just run Expansion Explosion just off the token.
Yeah, right.
Just for the matchup.
Yeah, you gotta play like 4 Smothering Tithes though.
The very
like you have to see it.
Yeah. Well, you can just run that in Treasure Map. You can get there that way.
Okay,
just get there.
That's fine. But the one thing I was walking around at the Classic and a lot of people were just talking about Bant Nexus and how it's so boring to watch, and I mean I agree. I think the games are really boring to watch. Don't put it on the feature match. That's all I gotta say.
Okay, so funny story about that actually. So they put Bant Nexus against like Nexus Gates on camera.
Oh god, that sounds like an awful boring matchup.
During day 1, apparently I heard this. I wasn't watching the stream until I was playing in it. But apparently they had 14,000 viewers, and when that came on after game 1, they had 6,000 left. That's what I heard.
That's
I heard they
great.
lost 8,000 viewers over the span of like one game because people were like, "I hate this. I'm not watching this anymore." Like this is like the worst ever because they just kept fighting Nexus back and forth. It was just so boring.
That is fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah, no, like that's, but they're like, it's so boring to watch. And so a lot of people are thinking Nexus and or Wilderness Reclamation are going to get banned for the same reason KCI got banned in Modern.
Well,
it's the fact that it's an infinite, non-finite loop, essentially. It's a non-infinite, non-finite loop that you're doing, right?
Well, KCI is what it was at a certain point a finite loop. Once you demonstrated that loop, but the problem is getting there took a while,
right?
Because you had to find the scrap trawler's mirror retriever, to demonstrate that loop.
Yeah,
and then you start drawing your deck. The problem with standard is that it's not. With the Teferi loop, you can loop Teferi, but the problem is it's not considered deterministic because your opponent can still play lands on their hand. And a funny story about that too. I was playing the mirror match and against Dylan Hand in the 15th round. It was the last round, and I was basically guaranteed top 64 regardless of how I did. And in game one, we're just playing land go, and eventually he tries to play a Wilderness Reclamation, and I have two absorbs in hand. I absorb the first one, he copies it with expansion, and counters my absorb. I absorb his expansion, and he copies it with the last 2 mana with the last one. And I was like, all right. And he goes, well, the funny thing about that is I don't have a win count off my deck. And the problem is you can't mill me with Teferi because Nexus shuffles back in. So I just move to discard Nexus, and I have 4 cards left to library the entire game. And I was like, so is this like a draw now? He's like, well, let's play it and see. So he starts casting Nexus, and he goes with that step, cast Nexus, shuffles deck, whatever. After like the 3rd or 4th time, I was like, okay, do we just want to draw now or like scoop? And he's like, well, let me see. And he Nexus again. He looks through his library, he goes, oh no, I have 1 more expansion left. Oh, never mind. He shows me the expansion explosion in the library. I was like, all right, let's scoop now. Let's go to 2. So I was like, okay then. But yeah, so as far as looking at banning something, I think the only card they would potentially do is Nexus. I don't think they would ban
right. Yeah, no, I agree. But at the same time, I think you're gonna piss a lot of people off. People bought boxes specifically to get Nexuses. As well as their cards, I think if Wizards does that, I think they'll piss some people off. Obviously, I think it's better for the format in a way. I also don't know. I think if they ban it, like the 2 weeks after the Pro Tour, I think it's too early. Because we have to wait for another control deck to settle down in the format and have that right creature kill to board wipe to counterspell ratio to deal with both the creature decks and the Nexus deck.
We already have Esper control though, and Esper control gets
the ratios aren't like perfect on that yet, right? Like,
no, but they aren't on Nexus either. So my thing here though is that Nexus really underperformed for the amount of people that were playing it. Like I got there on day 2, but. With that deck, but I believe there's only 2, or maybe there's a few more Bant Nexus decks. There's a couple
in the top 64.
Yeah,
in the top 64, I believe there was 4 Bant Nexus decks and 2 Nexus Gates decks.
Yeah,
only out of all of those, only 1 Nexus Gates deck or Bant Nexus deck made it into the top 32. So
yeah. So I think that it really underperformed, and I think people were somewhat ready for it. And the problem is that it's very fragile. Like if you put a clock on it, if you put a clock down before like turn, before turn 3, and you're able to either destroy Wilderness Reclamation or counter it on the way down, the deck really falls apart, and you're able to you're able to get there in game 1 very quickly. And then game 2 and 3, when you bring in discard spells and disruption and more counter spells and like the Sultai decks, like Nexus just doesn't do enough.
I agree
to win those. And the reason why KCI was banned wasn't because it wasn't like fun to watch. It was really because it was very oppressive and
it warped the format, right?
It warped the format.
It warped the format, and that's kind of what Nexus did this weekend.
No, not at all. I think that people were
prepared. I think people came over prepared for it this weekend.
See, the difference between warping a format though is that it's not just like it's not just putting sideboard slots for that matchup. That will always happen in every format.
Obviously.
You can say Dredge Warp's format because people play Rest in Peace in the sideboard, but that's just not true. You just need answers to it, and that's what they did for this weekend. I don't think there were decks that just didn't show up this weekend because of Bant Nexus. I think
obviously,
you got to see about every possible build of decks, and a lot of them showed up and did well this weekend. Mono Red underperformed, of course, and like there's some decks that underperformed, but you got a really good representation in the top 8. So I don't think that there's any reason right now to ban Nexus or.
I agree with you. It's just something that I was hearing a lot of, and I was talking to people, and because I was just trying to see like what everyone thought, and every time I'd go out, I'd talk to another person and be like, "What do you think of banning Nexus? Like banning Nexus of Fate?"
Yeah. Or if they weren't playing it, 100% they said ban Nexus.
Right. Yeah. It's like one of the guy who brought it up to me was a guy who was playing Bant Nexus. So like it was, but I was just talking to people, and I'd say out of probably 20 people I asked, 19 out of the 20 of them said yes, ban it. So I don't see it being banned. But I mean, it's a definite possibility. Wizards has done weirder things. I mean, they did ban Reflector Mage in a format where we needed it because of Emrakul.
Yeah.
Like,
sure. I mean, I don't know. I think that it's just not good enough right now.
Yeah, no, I agree.
To be anywhere close. And a lot of people I talked to on day 2, including like a lot of like the big Star City grinders that I asked about it, said like there's no reason for it to be banned until it's putting like 4 or 5 decks into the top 8. Close to that.
I 100% agree. It's
and a lot of people say it's almost like a meme at this point, like unbanning Splinter Twin. It's like ban Nexus, like just because like people don't enjoy playing against it, which is fine. Like people don't enjoy playing against Mono Red Prison either. Like because you just get Blood Mooned out on turn 2. Like, but the fact is that like that forces you to be to play honest. Like you have to keep answers in your deck for Wilderness Reclamation, or you have to play counterspells now in a green-black deck that you don't want to be playing counterspells in anymore. So I think it's actually kind of more healthy for the format right now that we have some kind of combo type deck in Standard, which that's what it is. Like I remember back to like Khan's Block when we had that like Jeskai Ascendancy combo deck that kept people honest because like you had to have a way to remove Jeskai Ascendancy, or
first deck I ever played against competitively ever in my life.
Jeskai Ascendancy combo.
Steven Garcia, 2 weeks in a row, round 1. Played him both weeks. No idea what was going on.
Yeah.
He explained it to me, and I'm like, okay, you win? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I started packing up my stuff. He's like, oh, we played 3 games. We played best of 3. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I like shuffled my deck. Like it was my first competitive tournament, like outside of just literally playing table Magic with my friend. And I was playing Esper Crucialist Control because my friend had 2 decks. He had Mono Red and Esper Crucialist Control.
And he gave you Esper?
He gives me the Esper deck, being a player who's like brand new, right?
No.
Yeah.
Is it like the Esper Dragons deck?
No, the Esper Crucialist Control. So Adrian Sullivan played it back in. This is
the blue-black, not Esper though.
Right. This is before Dragons came out.
Yeah. So it's just the blue-black control.
No, it was Esper. You played Elspeth. Suns champion.
So I know the one that he or made the finals with
Sullivan?
Adrian Sullivan at e.4 was just black-blue and just run Ashiok and Ugin as the.
It's Ashiok, Ugin, and no, he was splashing Elspeth.
No, I know that.
Not at the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
In the event after the Pro Tour.
Oh, okay.
The most recent build of it that he did well in after the Pro Tour, he was playing. Yeah.
Okay, because I know his Pro Tour winning deck was
just Ashiok and Ugin.
Perilous Vault, I believe, was that the.
Yes, you play 2 Perilous Vaults.
Perilous Vault, and then just Ashiok and Ugin. I think his main board, his only win con, I believe, was 1 Ugin.
I thought it was 3. I thought it was 3 Ugin, 2 Elspeth. Or 2 Ashiok, I mean.
I believe Ashiok was in the sideboard of his Pro Tour deck. I might be wrong about that, though.
I mean, that could be, like, I had his list from after the Pro Tour, not at the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
Because the only white card you played was Elspeth, and it was a one of.
And that was such a stupid card.
It was out of your sideboard. Like
that card should have been banned. Like Elspeth was so strong, man.
It did not break the format at all.
No,
we had
like
too many 4-color decks.
That was the strongest. Okay, well, after Origins you did. Before that you didn't really have 4-color. It was all 3-color.
No, you still had 4-color.
What 4-color decks did you have at that point?
You had like Dark Jeskai.
That was after Origins.
Was it?
Yeah, that was after Origins. Before that, I mean, it came on like.
You tell how much I paid about
right before Origins, but it was like right after Origins when we got like really into 4-color. Before it was like you maybe splash black just for Crackling Doom in a Jeskai deck, but there was like no other black cards.
There was like that's what it was. It was like four color decks, but they were splashing the fourth color for one card.
I think it was just Dark Jeskai.
No, there was an Abzan deck because the Siege Runner deck played a fourth color.
The Siege Runner decks, I believe, were playing blue and red after the after Origins. Because
it might
they
have
wanted
been
the splash for it.
Yeah. Like I said, I was a new player then, so I didn't really pay attention to the format. I just played the control deck that my friend gave me because he stopped playing Magic and he's like, you could just have the deck.
Yeah, I started playing right around like Theros block.
I started playing in Fate Reforged. So
Yep. So I kind of jumped really into the competitive scene then. So I kind of knew a lot of those.
Yeah, no, I jumped into the competitive scene at the Chicago Open. First, I'd been playing Magic for like 3 weeks prior to that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, went there when 09.
Oh jeez.
But I didn't care. Like I was just there to like play, you know.
See, I went there and
I still have that play mat too, the Tasper.
Oh
Tasper and Bananas.
Oh yeah.
I love that mat.
See, I went there and I brought my Esper Dragons deck. It was the weekend that Magic Origins was released.
Yes, I remember because I decided to buy McChickens instead of buy Jason's Burns Prodigy.
You decided to buy what instead of them?
McChickens.
Like actual McChickens.
Yeah, like we had not. we left at 5 in the morning. We left at my house at 5 in the morning because it was north of Chicago. It was in like Northbrook. And so like we were expecting traffic, especially because I come from further south. And we ended up getting no traffic. Got there super early, and so we had not eaten all day until after the open. And so between me and my friend, we had the chance to buy 4 Jace Burns Prodigies or buy dinner. We chose dinner, wrong choice, because we could have made so much money by buying the 4 Jaces.
Yeah, I believe they were like $7 then.
Yeah, they were like...
And they were like $120 about 3 weeks later.
They were $8 a piece because it was $32 for the playset.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm just like, man, if we would have done that, we would have turned $32 into like $400.
See, I was lucky because I was there. I bought Jace's early. That it was. I don't think it was. It was after that weekend. That weekend, though, I bought Hangerback Walkers, and they were still about $1.
Yeah,
and then they went to about 15.
Yeah.
Because Jeff Hooglin played the Hangerback like white blue Thopter like semi-control deck, whatever.
Yep.
And people realized Hangerback Walker is a really good card.
Yeah. But we're heading on an hour and 10 minutes here, so I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. But before we go, I want to tell you guys. So Gamestorm, thank you. Thanks to John for letting us use the room, letting us use the name on this podcast. Obviously, there's going to be a new event coming on Tuesdays, starting February 12th. There's going to be Super Smash Brothers tournaments here every Tuesday following that. There's going to be more details coming soon. Don't really know too much about it yet. They kind of just came up with the idea yesterday, I think, and kind of were talking about it and working out like the finite details. But if you have any questions about it or you want to just be updated on it, you can go to Facebook and join the Magic group here. It's literally just called Gamestorm's Magic Group.
I think it's Gamestorm.
No, it's Gamestorm's Magic Group. Yep. And you'll get all the info on that page for upcoming events here. Any questions you have, you can go there, message John Bertulis. He's the owner of the store, so he'll be able to answer any questions you have about any events that we have. And yeah, that's about it. So see you guys next week.